Assignment 2. Basing morality on self-interest. Basing morality on self-interest does not make sense in our society or in any society in the world. The basic social contract theory explains why basing morality on self-interest does not make sense. It is based on the idea that basing morality on self-interest makes sense. Another theory that supports this concept has been studied and written about by social contract theorists such as Thomas Hobbes. Lastly, the connection made between humans and animals proves that it does not make sense to base morality on self-interest. Begin quotation. According to social contract ethics, ethics is about participating in a social contract. An action, for instance, is a right action when it is consistent with the contract you have agreed to. An action is wrong when it goes against the agreement you made. End quotations. Mazzoni, 2010, page 60. When you are following a social contract, you are following a set of rules or ethics that generally everyone has agreed to follow. Often these rules reflect the morals of a general population or the rights and responsibilities of the majority of the citizens. But they cannot be based on individual self-interest. To argue this theory, one might say that people do what is right because it is in their own best interest, not because it is the right thing to do or the rule. It may not be what everyone else is doing. This way of thinking is often seen throughout our society and is believed by many social contract theorists such as Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, and Jean-Jacques Rousseau. A specific example relating to this thought is, begin quotation marks. In the social contract ethical tradition, the human natural inclination to preserve ourselves is regarded as so important that it even gets elevated to the status of a moral principle. This seems to be true even in natural law ethics, because in following the basic natural law argument, not only do we naturally and instinctually seek to preserve ourselves, but it is right that we do so. End quotations. Mazzoni, 2010, page 63. This quote goes one step further to explain that it is a self-instinct to preserve oneself if others are trying to hurt, damage, or belittle one's appearance or reputation. Though it may appear that morality was based on self-interest in this situation, this is simply not true because protecting oneself was the right thing to do. Another example of why basing morality on self-interest does not make sense comes from the beliefs and teaching of Thomas Hobbes, a social contract theorist. Thomas Hobbes does not believe that the principles having to do with social contract theory are naturally acquired, or that they are received through religion. Mazzoni, 2010, page 62. He believes that they are learned and used by someone simply from and throughout society. Great philosophers, note 8. Thomas Hobbes believes that the social contract theory can make people either wise or egotistical because of the ways that theories are acquired. Great philosophers, note 8. He believes that this is determined from the way the society is laid out. James Liberty File Collection, note 8. Thomas Hobbes also believes that in addition to people learning and acquiring new concepts through society, there are also signed and unsigned contracts within society. He believes that this ultimately leads to an overall social contract theory. Begin quotation. The social contract tradition wants us to see that in addition to the many individual, explicit, and signed contracts, there are also many implicit and unsigned contracts. There is a social contract for all contexts. This is the only sense that Hobbes concedes that we are social creatures. We will seek to benefit ourselves by participating in cooperative ventures. End quotations. Mazzoni, 2010, page 67. Accordingly, although these signed and unsigned contracts come with moral obligations, we still have the freedom to make our own choices. Lastly, Thomas Hobbes believes that humans enter into these signed and unsigned contracts because they believe they will be more successful with them. They believe they will be better off and stronger as a group. Lastly, they believe they will have a better chance at obtaining what they want if they cooperate with others. A specific example of this is, begin quotations. For Hobbes, humans don't enter into cooperative ventures like contracts because they are naturally cooperative creatures with natural inclinations towards sociability. They enter into cooperative ventures because they realize they have a better chance of getting what they want when they form contracts with others. End quotations. Mazzoni, 2010, page 66. This quote shows that some people will go to whatever means necessary to have the best chance of getting what they want in life. Often this means making connections with other people. Sometimes these are good and healthy connections. Sometimes these are bad and unhealthy connections. Some may argue many of Thomas Hobbes' beliefs by saying that these concepts originate from family beliefs and core values. People could also argue that they arise with the rational correction of one's self-interest. People also could argue that these concepts are learned from one's religion. In fact, this is a very basic way that people learn concepts. Many of the choices people are currently making are based on their religion and family values. Many of these decisions and actions are shown throughout current and past politics. This is just one of many ways that someone could argue the beliefs and teachings of Thomas Hobbes and other social contract theorists. Lastly, it does not make sense to base morality on self-interest when discussing the unwritten contract that connects animals and humans. Although there have been many circumstances where a strong connection between humans and animals exists, there have been as many situations where this contract has been broken. A strong connection or contract between animals and humans does not guarantee a long-term connection. One specific example of this is when trainer Roy Horn was attacked by his trained lion. The belief that Roy Horn had an everlasting connection with his lion suddenly proved to be untrue. This is explained best here. Begin quotations. Even when animals are trained with methods using rewards and punishments, there is still a rather high degree of probability that the animals will not live up to agreements made with their trainers. Although there may have been extended periods of training, and the animals may have long relationships with their trainers, wild animals can turn on their trainers. End quotations. Mazzoni, 2010, page 68. This quote illustrates the impossibility of an everlasting connection between animals and humans. This statement is also frequently argued by social contract theorists and others. Some may argue that long-lasting relationships between animals and humans are possible and even probable. An example of such long-lasting relationships are the connections that service dogs make with their owners. These relationships are almost never broken. These relationships have obvious positive benefits for both the animal and the human. However, this is only one type of a human and animal relationship that could be everlasting. This is not the proof of social contract theory. In conclusion, it does not make sense to base morality on self-interest. The social contract theory supports the idea that morality should be based on creating a stable and ordered society, which then makes it possible for people to work with and enjoy their long-term interests. Contracts should be signed to protect everyone as a group. Thomas Hobbes points out that although it is true that our basic instinct is to preserve our own self-interest, ultimately we choose this because it is the right thing to do in certain circumstances. Finally, the connection or agreement between animals and humans may be strong, but is not everlasting. Although bonds can be made with animals, in the end they are still wild animals and will act without morals and in their own self-interest. It does not make sense to base morality on self-interest.